Good morning. Today I'm going to talk about a few things, but mainly to just begin with, we're going to discuss David Cameron, the Eton-based son of an investment banker who paid the ultimate political price for his overconfidence after he left Downing Street 2 months ago following the EU referendum, but vowed he would stay on the backbenches until 2020. For others, Cameron's legacy was always going to be a terrible one. Coming to power under the banner of Broken Britain, Britain's youngest Prime Minister in almost 200 years unleashed a wave of austerity policies so harsh, even the International Monetary Fund urged him to rein it in. One post I've shared is of one lady, Frances McCormack, who was found hanged near bedroom tax eviction letters, had written a poverty plea to David Cameron. A mother threatened with eviction from the home where her son had taken his own life was found hanged in the same spot, an inquest heard. Frances McCormack, aged 53, had been badgered for bedroom tax after the death of her 16-year-old son, Jack Allen, in 2013, the coroner heard. The eviction notice arrived at her home the same day Miss McCormack's body was discovered on August the 10th last year. Now, this exact same thing happened to me. However, of course, my son didn't hang himself, but I was left with a bedroom spare and also lost my home for that extra room and for the extra tax that they wanted from me, which nobody could afford. Anyway, in this case, a handwritten note was found in her bedroom, part of which was addressed to David Cameron on the hardship the bedroom tax was causing. And I know that this was not the first or only suicide that happened due to Cameron's policies. Myself, having been a Samaritan, I've heard many, many stories of poverty, fear, how they're going to feed the children, how they're going to feed their family, where the next loaf of bread is coming from. Cameron was described as the worst Prime Minister in 100 years by the independent parliamentary sketch writer Tom Peck shortly after his resignation as Prime Minister. For some, the former Prime Minister's legacy was ruined overnight when his gamble to keep Britain in the EU and silence a rebellious minority of strongly anti-EU Tories MPs failed spectacularly and led to Brexit. His policies resulted in hundreds of thousands of job losses in the public sector, as government departments and local councils were forced to slash their budgets, whilst being able to fund Syria, the war in Syria, and also the authorisation of more troop deployment to other European countries, apparently in a show of force against Russia in the aftermath of leaving the European Union. He has, however, now told ITV News that he had thought long and hard about his decision and did not want to be a distraction from Theresa May's new government, stating, "I have to build a new life outside Westminster." Meanwhile, a new damning report has also now emerged by the MPs, which condemns the 2011 military campaign which overthrew the democratic leader, and I did say democratic leader, Colonel Gaddafi. It says that the campaign lacked both accurate intelligence and a coherent strategy for the aftermath of removing what the media calls the dictator. Now, we keep seeing these words, dictator, and terrible, talking about these people that we've murdered in cold blood. Also Assad, another person that I do mean when I say they run a progressive, democratic society. However, they were killed for other reasons. And the media do tell you all of these stories about how these people were dictators and are dictators to keep you believing in the need for these wars. However, the bloody collapse of Libya, which triggered a refugee crisis, excuse me, and aided the rise of ISIS, is blamed today on David Cameron's blunders when he intervened. The Foreign Affairs Select Committee concludes, through his decision-making in the National Security Council, former Prime Minister David Cameron was ultimately responsible for the failure to develop a coherent Libya strategy. They saw no evidence that the UK government carried out a proper analysis of the nature of the rebellion in Libya. As I've said before, he has been caught out doing arms deals with Saudi Arabia and the Gulf, Libya and Syria. So now, as Putin rightly said, and as I've said in my other videos, the UK, David Cameron, was indeed to blame for the rise of ISIL. And yet we see Obama almost squaring up to Putin, almost threatening him not to tell tales, whilst blaming the past history of Putin from what has been going on here and now in Syria. So make of it what you will of David Cameron's very quick exit. What a mess the Tories have left this country in, and we have to deal with this for another 4 years, with Theresa May as Conservative Prime Minister too. Not only this, as I've said in my last video, a masculine feminine, just like Thatcher. This is just more of the same. Meanwhile, Barack Obama has reached their final agreement on a record new package of at least $38 billion in US military aid to Israel over a 10-year period. The deal, the biggest pledge of US military assistance to another country in history, is expected to be signed within days and follows months of negotiations with war criminal Israeli leader Netanyahu. The sooner we get a peacemaking prime minister, the better. Barack Obama turned his vision of bringing troops home from Iraq to creating more war out there. His vision of the shutting down of Guantanamo Bay to keeping that open, and now he's seen openly doing arms deals with Israel. The deal requires at least $3.8 billion in annual aid, up from $3.1 billion per year under the current pact, which expires in 2018. Israel had originally requested at least $4.5 billion a year, and we need to question how much do we have to continue to pay for history's mistakes and errors. The new package will include money for Israeli missile systems, which until now has been funded separately by Congress. American lawmakers have given Israel about $600 million in annual funds for this purpose in recent years. Israel is the largest cumulative receipt of US foreign assistance since World War II. America's military assistance to Israel has amounted to $124.3 billion since it began 1962, according to a recent congressional report. All this whilst Israel clears its own military of war crimes in Gaza. And when we see Israel actually investigating itself for war crimes, and of course it is, finding itself not guilty of those war crimes. The Israeli military claims that there were no proofs of wrongdoings. As Netanyahu has sentenced one Palestinian man to death, saying he sees executing the wounded Palestinian as an ethical act. He's treating these people like putting them down like animals. As an Israeli Channel 2 poll says, 68% of Israelis disagree with public criticism of this Israeli murderer. One of the deadliest incidents involved an airstrike in the southern Gaza town of Rafah on August 1st, 2014, that killed 15 members of the Zarub family. The statement concluded that the airstrike was in line with international law, claiming that the international law allows attacks on homes doubted to be used for military purposes despite existences of many civilians. So basically they can decide that someone is hiding somewhere, bomb it, and then find out later if they were right. Where is the justice in this? According to one source, the army also found no wrongdoing in an airstrike a day earlier that killed 7 members of one family in a refugee camp. Again, it claimed that the building had been used as a command and control centre by Hamas, and that several militants, including 3 members of the family and a top Hamas military leader, were amongst the dead. Again, there was no proof of this. Whilst on one of my videos on my own Facebook profile, an American lady commented that she agrees with Israel's right to defend itself. My question is, defending itself against what? What is happening in Palestine is hugely disproportionate to what those of Palestine do to keep their own borders held back, where Israel continues to build on the West Bank. Again, people keep swallowing what their media and news tells them. Where so many continue to believe the media lies about all problems in the world as being religious problems. On one post, I've seen it written that there is no bad religion, only bad people. And as much as this is right, it doesn't serve any of us to teach our children that they are bad from the day that they were born. It serves to show them how great they can be, how good they can be, and how special they are, and how capable they are of being. Now, I don't personally follow a religion, but as I've said before, I'm involved enough to know that those who tell others they can't and shouldn't are a part of the problem. The human ego is such that the more you tell someone they can't do something, the more they fight to do it. Yet people evolve in their own time. It is those who fight against others believing what they want that holds them back and the world back. But that's the idea, I think, isn't it? When we are criticised or attacked, it is important to not take it to our heart space. His Holiness the Dalai Lama quoted, "I feel Tibetan culture, with its unique heritage, has developed a kind of energy that is very helpful for cultivating peace of mind and a joyful life. There is a potential for Tibet to help humanity. I feel very strongly that Tibetan culture will play a role in the future." He also said, "Be kind wherever possible. It is always possible." That's the 14th Dalai Lama. One of the most difficult challenges in life is learning to not take things to heart. And this is the problem, I think, with the Israelis and the Jews. Especially when we're younger, or if we're very sensitive, we take so much of what comes our way to heart. We end up becoming exactly what we don't want to be. And it can be overwhelming and unproductive if it throws us off balance on a regular basis, when we're feeling criticised or attacked from all directions. So we need to stop the attacking. The emotional attacking is as bad as any physical attacks. This is when we should do well to remember the old saying about letting certain things roll off us like water off a duck's back. And this is where a lot of schools today have taught, or rather tried, to toughen children up quite frankly, I don't think it's right. We take something beautiful away when we try to do this to the nature of our children. Most of the time, the attacks and criticisms of others have much more to do with them trying to shape children into something that they're not. And it's almost like playing God with lives. It's like playing the bully to ensure the economic wheels remain turning, so people will conform to a certain type of work ethic, whilst failing to realise that those who are more sensitive are in this world with a purpose for their own. And that is to heal the balance created by those like Tony Blair, the Tories, and David Cameron's of this world. You may have seen the picture of what David Cameron has been doing in the same time as Jeremy Corbyn was campaigning for world peace. Cameron was a part of the Bilderberg bullying group, and we also know about the tax evading history of his father too. Another good reason why Cameron might make a sharp exit from politics right now, because that would point him out as somebody that would need to be looked into. If, when Jeremy Corbyn does become Prime Minister, and all of that embarrassing is dug up too, it's not going to look very pretty, is it? Needing to toughen children up today is, I believe, why thousands of children are being removed from single mothers and single parents who are bringing the children up in a kinder, understanding nature in an attempt to kill these children's softer side. In my opinion, it is those who feel the need to make children and adults tougher who need to do the adjusting of their nature. Because if we get caught up in trying to adjust ourselves to others' negative energies, we lose touch with our core. In fact, in a positive light, these kind of people are arriving with a more sensitive, caring approach to life and others for a purpose. The workings of the universe, or God, whatever you perceive him to be, works in a divine pattern, which will always redress the balance of evil in this world somehow. As the elite hierarchy try to stop that balance happening, they up the ante and create even harsher rules in school. And we're now looking at a bullying state which is verging on dictatorship. And Jeremy Corbyn and all who recognise this is here to redress that balance. It is the universal energies at play through these people. It's our last hope. I truly do believe this, as Jeremy offers us the opportunity to strengthen our core sense of self in alignment with the core sense of justice, and to learn to dodge and deflect other people's misdirected negativity. In Buddhism, to those interested, Longchenpa open our eyes to the natural primordial state. Longchenpa means the infinite vast expanse of space. Born in 1308, Longchenpa was a major instructor in Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. He is credited with establishing a systematized teaching of Dzogchen, sometimes referred to as the study of the great perfection. The sole goal of Dzogchen is to attain and maintain the natural primordial state. This state is also sometimes referred to the true nature, the innately luminous, pure mind. The more we awaken to this, the more we're able to discern what belongs to us and what belongs to other people. The bullies, those who self-protect, and who protect their money over the care of the common people. With practice, we become masters of our own energetic integrity, refusing to serve as targets for the disowned anger and frustration of the people around us. The laws imposed upon us more injustice than it does justice. They separate more than they unite. Again and again we are taught to be good boys and girls, listen to your media, Learn this war and that wickedness is about religion, and politics will sort it all out. But as I said before, this isn't about religion. Just because they wear religious attire, it doesn't make it about that. That's what you are taught to think. Yesterday I posted something on how the Bank of America analysts think that there's a 50% chance that we live in the Matrix and that everything we experience is just a simulation. The Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, backed up the claims by SpaceX founder Elon Musk and Professor Nick Bostrom, citing comments from leading philosophers, scientists, and other thinkers. It is conceivable that with advancements in artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and computing power, members of future civilizations could have decided to run a simulation of their ancestors, the report stated. Frankly, I'd rather go with the Buddhist philosophy. Whilst of course those banksters will always be trying to find an escape from their own conscious. Yes, we do live in the matrix, but not to the one hypothesized in this article, but as a direct result of banks. Our politics isn't real. The news isn't real. They try to control us. The banks have killed more people than Hitler, and nobody says a thing. They're putting us into debt, and inequality is growing, and poverty as well. And as I've already said, people are dying. 40% of the wealth is already distributed to the rich, who are a small percentage. That gap will continue until we stop acting like slaves, and Jeremy Corbyn is being crucified because he is a threat to the order. People need to wake up. Philosophers dating back to the 16th century, notably René Descartes, suggested that we cannot rely on our senses and experiences to perceive the world. This is something I've been saying for many years. This is something that I actually used to argue quite a bit on Mind Key, or I think. But I do think that there is some order that always redresses the balance, as I've said. Both simulation and reality are just the shuffling around of tiny pieces of information on a quantum level, and it sets it back into a set of rules. It could quite be that when we see that the Jesus, where he vanished after his death and returned, that that some simulation may have happened at those points. And I have actually spoken about Jesus in the past as being a possible time traveler. If we are a simulation, then what if the simulation creators are just a simulation themselves? The whole of creation may just be an infinite hierarchy of simulations running within simulations, and at that point is where we have to say, is there really any difference between a simulation and reality? It certainly is likely, as the God explanation, more so if you are into science. The question is, can you connect to the real reality outside of your mind, or are you stuck in your mind? Eventually, we will be able to hear the feedback that others have to offer, taking in anything that might actually be constructive and releasing that which has nothing to do with us. First, though, we tend ourselves compassionately by recognizing when we can't take something in from the outside without hurting ourselves. This is when we must act like water off the duck's back, shaking it off and letting it roll off as we continue our way in the world. We do need to, all of us, in some way grow from the victim role, especially where religion and politics are concerned, or continue this route of protecting a nation because of its history against people who were doing nothing to do with these terrible wars until Israel was plonked slap bang in the middle of where Palestine existed. For another few centuries to come, Time for us to all step aside and out of the victim role and grow into the role of prime creator of peace in this world. And it takes for all of us to be a part of that. And whilst on the subject of us all playing a role in this, the Labour Party is now Europe's biggest political party. And Jeremy Corbyn has announced the biggest commitment to any political party in British history to involve its members, like myself, in aiding their learning and training, to organise communities, organise academies in every corner of the country, with the aim of delivering modern organising and campaigning training to tens of thousands of activists, with additional opportunities for specialist courses. What more can anyone do to be involved and to be actively involved as activists and members of a government and bring to Parliament issues through a leader who has campaigned all his life for human rights and a peaceful disarmament? I'm even looking forward to a better future with Jeremy's vision of how our country can be run with people and true power behind it. On the other hand, yesterday I watched the final hustings between our future Prime Minister Jeremy Corbyn and Owen Smith, as usual, needing to make many personal attacks on Jeremy Corbyn and pull him down, shows that he's already beneath him. He jumped on every single issue in regards to especially Brexit, in inclusive whilst Owen Smith is exclusive. He is a child throwing a tantrum on behalf of others. As I said in my last video, Owen Smith on the Andrew Marr show the other morning said regardless of the Brexit vote, he would reapply to join the EU, including losing our sovereignty and our currency. Most MPs, even the Tories, have fought to keep our currency. This man is way off the planet in regards to what the people want compared to what he would want. Owen Smith is only wanted by the 172 Blairite MPs who are influenced and controlled by the unelected Lord Peter Mandelson, who is another one of the architects of the Bilderberg. Jeremy Corbyn was asked why his poll ratings were so bad. We know the answer to this. The media is biased and it's not reporting the facts. It is also not reporting the polls on social media and of the real people who have our own ignored polls within, as we've seen true poll ratings versus those that are shown in the biased papers. It's time for change, and change is coming, and we are waking up to these media bias and lies because of all of this that is happening here and now. The universe is creating balance, and it's happening now. Bless you for listening, and once again, namaste. Love to all. Let's bring peace to this world. I'm really looking forward to a great future for everybody under Jeremy Corbyn, and with us as well, all having some power and some say. Bless you all. Thank you.